So, okay. So Helen asked me a question that nobody's ever asked me before, right? And that was why I started a podcast. And it's a reason that you wouldn't think of because it's very deep. So I'll try to compartmentalize this. So having a podcast, I believe, may be a way that I can have immortality, and I'll explain. So after I get to the level of you guys of hundreds of episodes, that's hours and hours of content where I've probably said every word at least once. You know, every word, almost every word that you commonly say. And we don't have the technology right now, but in the future, maybe after I'm gone, that content's still going to be out there. And how cool it'd be if I could download my consciousness into some sort of artificial intelligence that may be a computer program, maybe a robot, and my great grandchildren could interact with me just like you would sitting here today. I believe that technology is going to be possible, and it won't be possible for people that don't have a podcast because they're not going to have those words. I've got the video, I've got the audio, I've got my mannerisms, how I react, emotions and things, all recorded digitally. And it's similar to, if you've ever seen Superman, he did this with his dad. Like, Superman came here as an alien, he was a baby, and he had a hologram that he would use to communicate with his dad. And it wasn't pre-recorded. It would react, it was a conversation. And even though his dad was dead, that hologram reacted to questions in sort of an artificial intelligence way. So I believe that, obviously I created it because it's fun. And I love my guests, and it's fun to learn more about them. But the real reason for having all this content would be to perpetuate my mind and download my consciousness.
You're in a sense creating a legacy document, a
Right.
legacy recording of who you are.
Yeah, it's crossing your fingers for technology that doesn't exist right now, that may exist in the future. And I think people that have podcasts or that are in the media may be the only people that are able to do that. How else would someone do that, So
Yeah.
So I'm glad y'all asked that, because I've been holding on to that answer because nobody's asked me, like, so what did you start? And usually, well, it's fun, something to do. It's a side hustle. It's fun, but that's the real reason.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is. And who knows that one of these days there might be that technology available so that somebody might say, Tyler, tell me what I should do today.
Yeah.
What should I do about this?
And that computer program can react the same way that I would, because
Right.
it'll be able to, because we're going to get to that level of artificial intelligence where, say I have 1,000 episodes. It can process those 1,000 episodes, the video, the audio, the mannerisms, like in seconds. It's like there's already a computer like that that it can read books. It reads thousands of books a minute. They're just faster. So it can take in that information and create a digital version of me, and that would just be cool to have for, you can just go 2 generations. Like I knew my grandparents, I knew like maybe one great grandparent, and then after that, nothing. I have no clue. I don't even know what they look like or sound like. But there's so much digital content now with social media and things that there's going to be enough that this may be possible. Yeah. And there'll be bad versions of it for people that don't have a podcast. So it'd be kind of wonky and generic. All this content, it's going to happen. So.
You're making me excited that I have a podcast now.
Yeah. There you go. Unfortunately for me, it'll start 37. I got that 37 years age and on. There's not going to be any history of before that. But so start as soon as you can.
This is true.
All right. Well, I'll see what the next friend wants to get on and say. And then it's on video too. So that's always fun.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore the video because we don't do video.
Yeah, so every one of my podcasts are on YouTube, and then also all the audio. There's iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, which is all audio. But then there's also a YouTube version because some people like to watch podcasts. And I draw a lot of my inspiration from Joe Rogan, and his video is almost just as entertaining as the audio. So I try to, I'm not copying him or trying to be Joe Rogan. It's just that's where I get a lot of the creative inspiration from. But yeah, I'm here with Jerry and Helen, and if finally, I brought a lot of friends to the live show. This is the first time experimenting with the live show, and I finally got some strangers, so I'm super excited that y'all came and saw the event on Facebook, and you're actually podcasters yourself.
We are. We have been doing a podcast now for about 3 years.
Okay.
We'd have the podcast called The Heart of Hospice. We both work in hospice, and Helen's a registered nurse. I'm a chaplain, and so we've been in hospice now. I'm going on 9.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely a veteran podcaster compared to myself. I'm the rookie. So, yeah, I'm 7. Today would be episode 17, the one that's out right now with food blogger Lauren Bebo from Southeast Texas Foodies. That one came out. It's usually every Saturday at 8 a.m. whenever I launch. And so, how many episodes do you guys have? Probably hundreds.
We're working into the hundreds now. 150 something, I think. Was 157 was the last one, and that's weekly. We do 2 different episodes. We'll do a weekly episode, and we do a bi-monthly episode, where the weekly is a short episode that we just do together, and then the monthly is what we call a full length, somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour most of the time, where we do interviews. And so we've interviewed. Unless you're a hospice nerd like we are, well, you may not recognize some of the names. We've interviewed people like Barbara Carnes, Ido Bannock, who's the president and CEO of the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, David Kessler, who is a well-known name among the hospice industry.
Yeah.
Who else have we? Tom Baddock is one that we interviewed, which is kind of an interesting guy. Tom Baddock is the creator of Funky Winkerbean, the cartoon.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so we have interviewed him as well. It's very interesting.
I'd imagine.
I would like, people, if they're interested in that, you can go listen to that particular episode in our bank.
So where all can you find your podcast?
We are on Spotify. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, radio.com. And then Stitcher.
Yeah, but it's pretty much all the popular places.
It is. Yeah. So the most popular one, I think, is Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, for sure. And you always got to have Spotify for the non-iPhone people, because I would imagine if you have a Google phone or an Android phone, you don't have iTunes. So they usually go to Spotify and Google Play.
Yeah. That's really what I go to, is Spotify all the time. That's where I listen to most of my podcasts. So
do you have your own studio set up, or is it kind of, a lot of people start out of their house, I guess, but you've been doing it for a while?
You want me to can you hear me?
Yeah, here, I'll, we'll pop this out of here, and you can kind of hold it. There you go.
So we do have sort of a studio. We tried a couple of different places to see how it could work out, but, like a meeting room at church, that kind of thing. But now we're set up in my home office. / one of my kids' old bedrooms.
Right.
But we've got, boom mics and a big mixer. And so we've got space to spread out everything.
Nice.
And it's homemade, it's just us sitting there, yoga pants and tennis shoes, that sort of thing.
And that's the coolest thing about podcasts is you don't have to go to a corporation or a radio station and pitch your idea and say, hey, would this be a good idea? Would you guys have me on? You don't have to ask anybody. I spent a fractional amount of money just to get, this equipment that you see here today. That's just a webcam. And then as soon as you click publish, it's global. Not just statewide or nationally, but people across the entire planet can listen to your episodes.
Yeah, and it felt a little weird. I remember the day that we launched, we were actually both traveling for work in different places, and it was like all of a sudden it's this worldwide thing that anybody could access, and I think I was a little freaked out.
Yeah.
And so we got our first 100 downloads, and you would have thought we won a lottery.
Right. I remember that feeling too.
Yeah. And now we're over. What's our accumulation?
We typically do about 4,000 downloads a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to the level of maybe having sponsors and things like that?
We've thought about it, but it's strictly a side hustle.
Right.
So we do want to monetize it at some point, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different level of focus.
Mhm.
And we don't, we try to have personal lives still, and we
Yeah.
both work full time. So
Well, tell us
No
a little
time for
bit
that.
about the concept of hospice for those that may not be familiar with it.
Okay, so hospice is for persons who are terminally ill or seriously ill is the term we use these days. So people who have a life expectancy of about 6 months or less. It's care at the end of life that provides for mind, body, and spirit. And there's a whole team of people that take care of our patients, and we go to wherever they live. And it's all about symptom management and quality of life. So we let them be comfortable in whatever way is important to them.
Yeah, it's interesting dynamic now that modern medicine, we're living a lot longer, but
Right.
we're this kind of sack of organic tissue that just doesn't last very long. Once you get to, like the 90s, and if you make it 100, you're still there, but man, your quality of life is just sometimes so just depending on the situation.
Right.
It's cool that we're able to live that long, but it almost gets to a point where you can't do much
Exactly.
at some of those later years.
Well, and so hospice teams are set up to make the patient successful in whatever quality of life means for them.
Mhm.
For some people, it's just simple stuff, being able to get up and have some sort of energy. For other people, it's to be able to spend time with family or with pets. It can mean 100 million different things to different
Yeah.
people. It just depends. And a lot of times quality ends up being not having pain or being able to breathe comfortably.
Yeah,
It begins a lot of more emphasis on the physical.
What would you say is an illness that you would be really excited if we could get better care for or a cure for? If you had
That's an easy one.
yeah. What would you-
Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's disease.
I was going to think the same thing, because once you lose your mind, you really lose who you are.
And along with the mental deterioration, there's physical deterioration, since the brain is the control panel of everything.
Yeah.
So it chips away at that person a piece at a time.
And the whole caregiving system with Alzheimer's is different than with any other disease,
Mhm.
because they can, with other diseases, the caregiver can take a break for a while.
Right.
With Alzheimer's, there's no break. It's like having a
Yeah,
child.
for
again.
sure.
So it's a very different caregiving system. It's harder, much harder.
Mhm.
Right, and because the disease trajectory is so long, that caregiving system, and we say system, assuming there would be more than one person, when a lot of times there's only one,
Mhm.
you're talking about years
Yeah.
of single caregiving. It's really hard. So I have to say that would be my number one choice.
Yeah, I would have to agree. That it actually struck my mom when she was very, very young. So it was like pre-Medicare. So she was like 63, and typically it's later in life. So she needed, full-time care, and she hadn't got to the age of Medicare yet. Luckily she still had private insurance, but usually Medicare can help supplement allowance. She wasn't old enough. So
Right.
we had to get like special approval to get like early Medicare. And it's a funny story that I usually tell. She ended up going to the nursing home here in Lumberton, and she still looked very young. She was a tennis player and a tennis coach, so she still had what I say, not the old people hair, I guess you would say, where it's teased. So she had like long flowing blonde hair, just like you, Helen. And so she would escape the nursing home because they thought she was a visitor.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because she didn't fit in with the crowd.
She didn't look like a typical
Exactly.
little old
yeah.
lady.
And she was wearing like a windbreaker and athletic clothes. So we ended up moving her to the Silsby facility that was kind of on lockdown. But it was cool because they had a courtyard, and none of them went to their rooms. They were always in that common area, hanging out with each other. And I would take my son to go visit, and she would get really happy because she thought my son was me, but she didn't know who I was, so she didn't really care. But it was fun to watch her interact with my son at the time. But it progressed so fast that she ended up passing away because, like you said, it overtakes your system. The central nervous, or the CPU of your body, can't tell you that you're hungry or you need to eat or you need to do anything, and it kind of just shuts everything down.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And, you know, with technology, you were talking about the advances in healthcare. I mean, we have incredible advances, and we've got this group of people, these baby boomers who are getting ready to age in. They're calling it the silver tsunami because it's going to be so big. And we have all this technology. We're going to keep you alive and make your quality of life even better. We can fix everything. And what we experience in hospice is it's really hard to reverse that mindset. Our bodies are born knowing how to shut themselves off.
Right.
And we try to interfere with medical advancement.
I think the future is going to be stem cell therapy, possibly. There's some really exciting things that are being done with that. Unfortunately, they're in other countries because it's so slow to get passed through here. There's doctors that live here, and they'll fly their patient to Panama for stem cells. In the U.S., we have kind of like intramuscular injection stem cells, but not IV stem cells. And it was Mel Gibson's dad. Of course, money's not an object with someone like that, but he flew his dad down there and had the IV stem cells, and it made him feel like 20 years younger. You know, he was like in his 90s, and I mean, it was amazing how he went from not being able to do anything to having those IV stem cells. So,
you know, the U.S. is like that with hospice too.
Oh,
we
lots
were
of
late
regulation.
coming to the game. Coming to the game. And yeah, we're highly regulated.
Sure.
But I mean, every part of the healthcare industry is
Yeah.
in the United States. But we were late coming to hospice. Europe, Great Britain, much more advanced, a lot sooner.
Yeah, we're behind on maternity leave, staying home with your child after the baby's born. Nothing for the dad, you know, to get maternity leave. Yeah. So yeah, there's a few things. It's interesting how companies like we have in our backyard, like Total Petrochemicals, they're owned by the French, and all their HR goes from France. So they actually have programs like that sometimes with a foreign-owned company.
That's pretty cool. For the dad to have maternity leave, my husband would have hated that.
Yeah. And I don't know about for the dad, but I know Total has like a better plan for the women. Like they give them almost like, you know, 3 months at just a slightly reduced salary.
Well, hospice didn't
something
come,
to that nature.
Hospice didn't come to the United States until the mid-'60s.
Wow.
Where in Europe they had been doing it for years before that. And it was actually a Brit that brought it over here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
James Cicely Saunders was the one who brought it over here.
Okay.
She had started what we call the modern hospice movement way back in the 50s in London, and built the first inpatient unit, St. Christopher's Hospice there in London. And then we had a group of people here in the United States who asked her to come over and help us to develop that here. And it was from there that we continued to develop it. And finally in 1982 was when the hospice Medicare benefit started.
Oh, wow. That was the year I was born. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was that long ago. That long ago, that hospice Medicare actually started here in the United States.
Right.
So we've come a long way, but we still got a long ways to go.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Is there anything else you want to tell the people?
we would love for everyone to come check out our podcast at The Heart of Hospice. We have a website as well, theheartofhospice.com, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram also.
Excellent. I'll definitely have to check it out after today. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for being the first strangers to come on. I gotta trying to get out of the comfort zone here. All right, that's great.